Listening to the autobiography of Jesus as told through a channel, Tina Spalding, the last couple of days. And I thought it was really interesting and applicable to today's topic, sort of Mother's Day. I guess in the past when I've heard of Mother's Day, I always felt like, what about the people who had bad moms or no moms or some kind of emotional issue regarding moms? And so I always just felt like Mark said earlier before our service in a prayer, that the female energy is in everything and everyone, and in the universe, and so that's our mom. And anyhow, that's what Jesus says in his autobiography, is that in the spiritual realm there are no physical and male attributes, because that would be a form of separation, and the bodies are forms of separation. So any focus on different roles or anything separate or different is a reinforcement of separation versus a reinforcement of union. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and that's something I wanted to share with you today. And now we'll go into the opening statement. There was only one power and one presence in the universe, God the good, all power, ever present, all knowing, and we are one. And our vision statement is, we are a spiritual community with a passion to share love, faith, and hope. Our mission statement is that we are an accepting, loving, and faith-filled spiritual community that honors all paths to God. Now it's time for abundance is love coming through many gifts and many avenues, not just monetary gifts, but abundance has no lack, has no limit, and has no fear attached to it. And we want to see that in financial ways and in all other ways, coming into our lives, streaming into our lives, into our church, and into our relationships. Let's honor all our abundance by saying, divine love through me bless and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. Everything that you find meaningful and loving in your lives. And we can just pause for 30 seconds or so and just appreciate what you feel is on your heart to appreciate. And know that your appreciation magnifies the abundance flowing through you.
Comfort within yourself and just breathe. Relax deeply into yourself and into your seat. Notice the space in your heart, in the center of your chest. Focus on the light within you, right there. As you breathe in, expand that light. Breathe in again, and every exhale, the light is brighter and expands beyond the edges of yourself. Until that light in us joins the light of all those here, and we are one. As you breathe in, notice your feet as they are connected to the earth. And as you exhale, feel your feet and see roots that go out, roots of light that go down from your feet into the earth and spread as far as you can imagine in all directions. And on Mother's Day, what a good connection for us to have with a great mother, the giver of life, Mother Earth. We sprang from the great mystery and have our presence here in our bodies because of the love that Mother Earth has to know herself. And through the great love that God has for us, the divine spark is in our heart as we manifest more of the love that we are, the beauty that we are. And as we go into the silence, we realize that the language of the divine is the silence, is the silence. As you return to this present time space, realize that the beauty of the love that we share is the gift that we have at all times. because it is inside us. And as we share that love to everyone, that's how we receive it. And so it is, and so it is.
Thank you, Luann, for that kind introduction. And as this is Mother's Day, I'd like to say a few words. Mother's Day also implies an honoring of birth, or we would not use the term mother. And I would like to share two main laws from sweet medicine. And number one is all things are born of woman. And number two, nothing must be done to harm the children. And children implies all the worlds. Children of the mineral world, the plant, the human, and the animal world. And so that as we honor life and motherhood, we must remember that the mother of things is extremely important and critical to us. And it's nice a day was created to honor mothers. My talk today has been formulated through many weeks. I've had thoughts about it, and it's entitled, Who Am I? And the answer that when I've asked myself this question, I've found that has changed through the years. When I was 7, I was a first grader. My name was Danny Champion. My dad was a hospital janitor. I lived in Petoskey, and my world centered around my home and mommy and daddy. When I was 18, I'm now a graduate, high school graduate. I'm thinking of college. I'm starting to think more outside myself in the world, and who am I was kind of undecided. And I finally decided that was who I am is made up of dreams of the future and planning. So moving on now to when I'm 65, I'm still working. I have no concept of retiring. That's something I do to my van when it needs tires. But now, to me, who am I is a deep question, and I realize that it requires a lot of thought, and it's a question I have really directly avoided answering all the years. Related questions that may come up when you ask yourself, who am I, are what am I grateful for? Or who am I when I'm at my best? And what does my heart truly long for? And I've found that when you contemplate questions like this, the thoughts come up like, who I am not. Oh, I'm not an astronaut. I have not landed on the moon, and I'm not a brain surgeon. And I find that it's best to, when you contemplate on this question, that when these thoughts come up, who you're not, or you start getting down on yourself, it's best to banish them. They aren't going to do you any good. Such a simple question, isn't it? But difficult. It forces you to ask yourself, where do I get my identity from? And it's very easy to go through life never consciously answering this question, but at the same time, the search for an identity drives every area of one's life. A common way to answer this question can usually fall into 3 areas, and this is where most people end up at. Number 1, I am what I do. This answer is centered on your work and accomplishments in life. And this is why people often ask, what do you do? And it's very common in guys to say, well, I'm a carpenter. Oh, okay, that's neat. End of question. The problem here is you'll be basing your identity on something that will fluctuate greatly. Promotions make you feel great, but setbacks leave you down on yourself. And when you get old or disabled, how will you define your life then? Number 2, I am what other people say about me. This is basing your identity on other people's opinions. How many likes on Facebook? Who wants to date me? How is my respect in a group? And so on and so on. The problem occurs when you are criticized or disliked, especially by a key person in your life. So number 3, I am what I have. And that's a real common one. And look at all the billionaires that are accessing more. They have 10 billion, now they need 20. I wonder if that makes them happy. The last I looked, Howard Hughes was a billionaire and died very miserable. It did not bring happiness. Your identity is found in your possessions, things, social class, education, alphabet letters after your name, of course, clothes. These markers show others who you are and how much value you have, so you think. When these things all slip away because all things of the physical world are impermanent, the loss can leave you feeling worthless in a life you have no control over. The Master Jesus, when tempted by Satan, of course we now call that ego, it sounds more a modern word, in Luke chapter 4 responded to this question by avoiding these 3 areas. Number 1, he was asked to turn stones into bread. And if he fell for this one, he would show he could do something amazing. Second temptation, he was asked to jump from the top of the temple and let the people catch him. And this would get people to think highly of him. And number 3, he was asked to become king of every nation. And this would show how much power and things he had. Jesus refused to fall for any of these 3 areas. So what did he say? He said, I am God's beloved. He found his identity in God's unconditional love and acceptance. Because of that grounding belief, he didn't need to achieve the most, make everyone love him, or have the most stuff. Well, again, back to the question, who am I? Have you ever asked this question yourself? At what times of your life have you ever asked it? Have you found it changing? Well, I'm going to suggest 5 ways to approach this question. Number 1, reflect. Examine yourself. Look in the mirror at all your strengths, flaws, impressions that you give others, and critically engaged with the reflection you present. Once you have a good grasp on yourself, you can move on to step 2, which is decide who you want to be. Of course, you can't be perfect, but we all can improve. Identify who you want to become. Ask yourself, who am I when I'm at my best? Be honest. Choose your destination. Whoever this dream person is, define them. Number 3, make better choices for yourself. Once you know what you want, and once you know who you want to be, take the time to make active, conscious choices that help you to become better. Number 4, explore your passions. Are there parts of yourself you never knew about? It's your job to discover them. The closer you come to knowing that you alone create the world of your experience, the more vital it becomes for you to discover just who is doing the creating. Number 5, develop your social circle. When you understand what's most important to you in life, your life values, you can clarify who you are by choosing your social circles based on compatible values. You can have great clarity in your relationships too, as you see yourself reflected in the people around you that you've chosen. It's crucial you find people who are aligned with your values and your identity. Psychotherapist and author Mel Schwartz says, our identity should be seen as an ongoing process rather than a static snapshot. We should embrace a flowing sense of self whereby we are perpetually reframing, reorganizing, rethinking, and reconsidering ourselves. Discovering our identity is a journey and not an ending. Dr. Wayne Dyer said, the more you see yourself as what you'd like to become and act as if what you want is already there, the more you'll activate those dormant forces that will collaborate to transform your dream into your reality. And let's ask the question again. Who are you when you're at your best? Would you be a loving person? Would you be a loving person who has a good balance between your heart and your mind? Would this person be someone different than who you see yourself right now? And in closing, I will throw this question back at you, the audience. Who am I right now?
The service is open now to anyone who would like to share, answer Dan's questions, have a comment on anything he has said. We want to keep it to the subject matter, though. And please be mindful of the sharing time so that everyone has a chance to contribute. Thank you, Dan, for that wonderful talk. I benefited a lot from it personally.
Thank you.
Yeah. And my son's been going through some stuff, wondering what his career is, having doubts, and so I'm excited to share this YouTube with him.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
This is an excellent subject. This is huge. I've kind of found a lot of blocks to not becoming me. One of those blocks is shame. You know, this society values a lot of things. Be this, be that way, be this way. And in the process of saying, be a certain way, something is lost. The feeling that I'm being seen for who I am, that energy that is waiting to be expressed in whatever form it takes, that is unconditional to what other people want or say, or, you know, the word should comes into my mind. You know, you should do this to be successful. And I've always struggled with that particular should. So there's a shame. And when I hear Dan talk, you know, that shame is compensated a lot. It is, well, I don't feel good about myself, so I'll be more of this, or I'll do more of that, or I'll attain more money so that I can feel good and achieve other people's approval. And this society, from what I've experienced in my life, is based on that. It encourages that direction, having more, doing more, attaining other people's approval. You know, in my life, a lot of it was being good. Be the good kid. Be the good boy. And in being good, I couldn't be angry. I couldn't be upset. I couldn't say no. And then there was a bit of a people pleasing that came in. And I lost myself. Literally lost myself. Who am I? And part of my process was to gain back all those things, to say no, to say I'm not putting up with this stuff, you know, to be more selective in my friends, So that's all part of my journey to be a human being first. And then once I can embrace being a human being, then guess what? The unflowering of the Christ energy then comes. It's as if I made room for being a human being, and then suddenly that same energy that causes a flower to bloom is coming through me. And it feels good. It's like riding a wave. And the change of identity then moves from, oh, I should have more money, or I should have this job, or I should be more important, to the energy of this unconditional love. And that is a huge spiritual stretch. I'm still, I recognize it intellectually, and sometimes I practice it, but I'm always teeter-tottering on that line. So it's part of my imperfect journey of being human. So thank you for sharing. Yeah, thank you for listening. Okay.
Reminds me of a weekend workshop I had many, many years ago, and the two topics of it were guilt and shame. And the first part of it dealt with guilt. And guilt is usually something a person can deal with on their own. It usually implies I'm sorry or I apologize. But the other part of guilt is atonement. And once the atonement is done, the debt is cleared, and you can usually deal with guilt through atonement and making it right. The other part of the workshop dealt with shame, and shame is I learned, is something extremely internal. In fact, there's one theory that we are born with shame. There's kind of a capsule that comes along in our birth, and we inherit a lot of shame from our parents, grandparents, and past generations. And shame is sometimes something you're stuck with. You cannot work this out yourself, and you need intervention or help. And counselors can help you deal with shame. And the ultimate is taking it right to God and saying, I feel so shameful. God, I need help with this. What is the solution? And you mentioned God has unconditional love. He knows all about you, and he'll love you. He knows all the bad things you've done, and he still loves you. So that was kind of one of the ultimate solutions in dealing with shame. Take it to God.
Dan, I just want to thank you. This really hit me because when I was teaching, I knew who quote, who I was. But now that I'm not teaching, it's like, there goes that identity. And I was very involved in the dance community here, the Contra dance community, and there goes that identity. And it's kind of like this, who am I? But I'm more than what I do. And I'm just struggling with like wrapping myself around that. I mean, what I do, for a living or whatever isn't who I am. And I'm just mulling this over. Thank you. Good points.
As I'm driving down to church this morning, I'm thinking, what's my purpose in life? Finally, at my age, I'm going to figure it out. But as I was listening to you talk, I thought, who am I? And it's like, and I thought, what makes me feel good and what makes me feel bad? And I thought, I think when I forget about who I am, that's what's good. Somehow when I'm looking at, maybe I've influenced somebody, or if I see somebody else grow, especially working with kids, maybe it's like feeling like you made a difference in somebody's life. So I guess what I'm saying is, for me, it's like, if I forget about me, life is great.
I can relate to that, Pat, because when Dan asked, who am I when I'm at my best, I would say it's when I'm just being accepting. It's like when I'm being quiet, when I'm not saying anything. I'm accepting myself 100, unconditionally, and I'm accepting the people around me unconditionally. And kind of that loving presence, kind of like what Pat said, your appreciation for the unfoldment of all that's good and just focusing on good and allowing yourself to identify with the good that's unfolding around you, within you and those around you. And I think that's empowering too. There's power in that, a different kind of quiet power. And lately I've been saying to myself, or that this words or thought come into my mind quite frequently, is I don't want to change the world. I don't want to change anything. I'm not here. Who I am is not to change the world or to make a mark or to bring any attention on me, like, look at how I'm changing the world. And it's not, what's the word that they use? Virtue signaling? Yeah, I'm not about virtue signaling. I'm just for that unconditional love. I'm so glad that you shared that in the Bible where Jesus says, I am the beloved's child. That's it, period. I am an example of abundancy, unlimited. I'm an example of what abundant love looks like as it's flowing. It's very dynamic. And it feels good too.
That when I'm letting go of a certain identity, who I thought I was, and I'm not quite where I should be or want to be or know who I am, there's this huge gap that I fall into, and it feels very uncomfortable. Where I'm letting go of something where I'm not quite, I know I'm not that, and I'm letting that go, but I'm not quite sure who I am yet. So in that gap is there's this floating. And I believe that the community of a church is so important when we're in that gap of not quite knowing who we are yet, to support us and love us unconditionally, because that gives us comfort to be in that gap and to move through that gap to the other side until we find our first blooming, and then the second blooming, and then the third, and then we're off in the flower garden. So I'd like to welcome another speaker coming up.
That's what I do. I was surprised because I never know what I'm going to draw from what you were speaking about. But what surprised me about the drawing is, first this face came, which I do a lot of figure drawing, but then like this struggle here. Can you see do you see it?
Yeah.
It started coming out.
Yeah, I noticed when Colleen draws, her pictures always have something, words coming out of the mouth, and the thought hit me, that was very right on in what I was trying to convey, the power. Charles Fillmore said that the organ is the back of the throat, meaning what we utter can either make us or take us down, because everything we say comes back to get us, either good or not so good.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I agree with that completely, that, and it's something you're in control of.
Yes. Well, sometimes you'll say something and you go, I'd like to take those words
Oh my
back,
gosh,
but they're out there, like a radio signal is out there. So the thing is, when the gossip comes around, the number one rule is say only good things about people, because when that goes around, it comes to that person, oh, Dan said that about me. Oh, I'm very pleased. I'll tell him how much I appreciate that next time I see him. And kind words and always negate negative stuff coming at you. Mm-hmm. But it requires that conscious direction and not just run your mouth off and, why did I say that? I shouldn't have said that.
Hold on with that.
Okay.
Well, it reminds me of, I relate to our teachers and retired people here because I retired too, but I remember, dealing with parents that you always wanted to have a good relationship with them in the first place, And when you did talk to them about things that went wrong with Johnny, you want to say a lot of good things before you get to the problem, And it's that those are building blocks, that we have for, relating with everybody. I said this last week about checkout clerks and everybody that you see, to treat them with kindness and openness and, anyway, thank you. And I wrote one other thing. Power and force are not the same. I wrote that down. And I find that to be really important, to identify them, And I love this because it's so all-encompassing. All things born of woman. What did you say?
All things are born of woman.
All things are born of woman. Nothing should be done to harm the children. Well, we're all children, So,
All worlds.
yeah,
Human and
all
plant.
religions, yeah. So thank you.
You're welcome.
It's fun to share it.
Let me ask you, so you mentioned retirement. So a lot of your identity was tied up as a teacher, right?
Well, I was a
And you-
childcare teacher.
Okay, so you retired from that. So did you have to adjust?
Well, first I took a leave of absence and took care of Dad. And then I went back to work one day and they closed the schools. So I retired. But then I was still taking care of Dad's business and everything like that. So now I'm trying to, my husband's retired, I'm retired, and I'm, trying to explore more my artistic stuff.
Okay,
So, anyway, thank you.
thank you.
And I think you are so right, and I love those steps for us to do on finding out who we are, because I think we have so many things to take our minds that we can use as escapisms to keep us from finding out who we are, whether it be our career, looking for things to do. So I really appreciate you naming those steps to investigate and reflect on who we are and who we want to be. And with this pandemic situation, we're certainly given the opportunity to be by ourselves more than we would have normally. And it's kind of in our face, finding out that we don't know who we really are, which can be scary. It also can be very liberating if we're courageous enough to go there. But like you said, that big block of shame keeps us away from there. It's like we don't want to go there because of the stench of it. And really, it's not that bad. It's us that have made it that bad. So thank you. Thank you very much.
One thing I cut short on the talk was when I mentioned passion. Joseph Campbell, the philosopher, one of his directives was follow your passion, follow your bliss. And that is one of those steps on discovering your identity that one should spend some effort on.
In my quest for who am I, a big part of it is who am I when people like me, and who Who am I if people disapprove of me or reject what I offer sincerely? I had a very big experience with somebody that I love very dearly this week. And I realized today that the I that I am came in very kind from a very small child and loving also. And it doesn't matter because it's like a flower. The flower that blooms in our garden doesn't have an issue with it being pink and beautiful. It just is. So that's the great gift, that regardless of what people see in us, it just doesn't matter if we know truly that place of love that we are. And the only part of me that's hurt is that artificial, manufactured part of me, the mask, a role that I put up with people to try to be something that they'd like, because the true me doesn't do that. I just am just kind and loving, that's it. So it's a real gift to me.
Morning, everybody, and thank you, Luann and Dan, for sharing your personal experiences. I had the thought, kind of reflecting on our talk this morning, about times I've been less than myself and times that I've been more of who I really am. And I think in times I was my best self was times when I was expressing some of my God-given talents. And times that I was less than my true self were times where I let a petty streak take over, or I was trying to conform to fit in. And I think that we develop ourselves by finding people that we're a vibrational match with, and that I'm able to express more of my true self when I don't conform and just be.
Thank you, everybody who's contributed to the service today. And we are going to move into the last part of our service, which is the peace song. Feel free to sing along. You can mute your microphones. Protection. Please join with me. The light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of a God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is. I am divine. That's the truth.